What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and it kind of saddens and disappoints me that I have to make this video because if you remember a while back, I believe it was Shuhei Yoshida from Sony who basically said that they were kind of, in a sense, giving up on the Vita. Now, he didn't specifically say that, but what he did say was that you wouldn't see any first-party games, or if you did, you would see significantly less first-party games coming out on the Vita. And they were basically going to leave it to third-party developers, which they have. The Vita has a decent amount of third-party support. Personally, I wouldn't say it's adequate, but I do think it still has a decent amount of third-party support. But there's a couple of reasons why I mention that. I'll get into them all individually now in a minute. But even though he didn't outright say it, what he did say was obvious what it meant for that. They were supporting it considerably less. So at the same time, their actions speak louder than words. And with all the announcements out of the Sony press conference today, it really not just the announcements today, but some of the announcements today and some of the actions that they've already previously done kind of reinforces what I'm saying, or what I interpret as he's saying it. Now, like I said, we all know that that's basically what he meant. But I'll give you a couple of quick examples from before we touch on the new stuff today. So some of the older ones, let's say Tearaway. Tearaway was one of the bigger and what I understood as better selling games of the Vita. I didn't personally buy it or play it myself, but it was, wherever you look, it would always be considered one of the reasons to buy a Vita. Gravity Rush, same thing. Gravity Rush is a considerably older Vita game as well. I think it might be a launch title or shortly after launch title, but that was also considered one of the better must-have games. Now, Tearaway was ported to the PS4. I think it came out either today or just last week. I remember one of my friends actually looked at it in GameStop today, so that's what brought it to my mind. But at the same time, I can understand from both sides why they ported it to PS4. One, it gets access to a bigger install base. I mean, you've got 25, 26, 27 million PS4s. How many Vitas are there out there? I think there's like less than 10 million Vitas or something. I think it's considerably less than 10. But either way, it's potentially a much bigger install base. So that's that one. But at the same time, it does kind of damage their Vita, and it kind of reinforces the message that it's like, well, this is on the Vita doing nothing. Let's get it somewhere else. And again, at the same time, that was Tearaway we're talking about there. That happened to numerous other games too. I realized they're not just from first parties. You have, say, I think it was the Assassin's Creed game that got ported across. I don't remember. But they announced today, Sony that is, that Gravity Rush from the Vita is being ported to the PS4. And it's going to be out this year in Japan, and it'll be out early next year in the US. There was no mention of a European release date in any of the stuff I saw. But it'll come with the game and all three of the original DLC packs. And like I said, the fact that they're porting it off to Vita. Now, yeah, it's a fairly well-received game, so yeah, again, it makes sense to bring it to your PS4 install base. But at the same time, it could potentially hurt. Well, see, that's where it's a gray area on your opinion on it. It takes away a reason to own a Vita, or it takes away one of the reasons to own a Vita, essentially. Again, I didn't play Gravity Rush, but I hear many good things about it. And at the same time, to build on top of that, Gravity Rush, a Vita game, basically. It was released and developed originally as a Vita game, and now it's going to be ported a few years later onto PS4. They've announced a sequel, Gravity Rush 2, obviously, if it's a sequel. But the sequel is only coming out on PS4. The sequel isn't coming out on PS4 and Vita. It's not coming out on Vita or anything like that. It's just coming out on PS4. So that really shows they're kind of, well, not kind of, but it just completely shows that they're just moving away from it. They're still making it and still updating software and all that, but it's obviously still there to be supported by third-party devs. But at the same time, Sony has just obviously pretty much abandoned software support on it. But at the same time, they are reinforcing, or well, with some of the other announcements, I should say, it's reinforcing that other developers, third-party developers, are still supporting the Vita. Obviously, okay, fair enough. A first-party game like Gravity Rush isn't a good example. Other Sony games like Tearaway being ported across, yeah, again, same thing. But the Vita is generally considered haven for JRPGs, among other things. But it's usually considered a haven for JRPGs. I know personally, out of every Vita game I have, I think they're all JRPGs. They're all JRPGs except for one. Now, I only have like 4 or 5 games, but they're all JRPGs. So, well, almost all JRPGs. So it illustrates my point. But when you look at some of the other games that were announced today, and they're not just half-assed games that are being thrown together. So if you're familiar with Vanillaware at all, Vanillaware makes some good-ass games. That's all I can say. Vanillaware showed off their new game. Now, there's not much about it. They showed a bit of it off, and they said what it's going to be coming out on. But it's called 13 Sentinel Aegis Rim. So it looks pretty funky, and I'm not going to get into the details on it. You can find it out somewhere else. It'll be on many of the websites with the footage and screenshots from anywhere doing news today. But that's coming to PS4 and Vita. So, other third-party developers are actually supporting this. There's another one as well coming out. Again, I'll probably horribly butcher the pronunciation in this, but it's Danganronpa. I always butcher that whenever I try to pronounce it. Again, there's a new one of those coming out. It's coming to PS4 and Vita. So there's another perfect example. And at the same time, here's a pretty much a bigger one. It's Square Enix have finally announced a new game in the Saga series, and it's only so far it's only announced for the Vita. First off, we'll just call it. It's called Saga Scarlet Grace, but it's coming to the Vita next year in Japan. So the fact that other developers are still supporting it, and like I said, it's usually generally down to what's considered a safe haven, not a safe haven, but just a haven for JRPG fans. So it's still doing that. But at the same time, when you look at pretty much any other console, they will get staple games from first party, they will get huge titles from third party, and then they'll usually get smaller titles from third parties as well. With the Vita, because of how, fair enough, I know it's to do with the sales and the sales and the catalog on there, but at the same time, on the Vita, it's got practically, it doesn't have any AAA games really. I mean, you have the offshoot trying to be AAA games, but it just doesn't work on the Vita. It doesn't work on any handheld console really. At the same time, you don't even have first party games, but you have kind of drip fed third party games. And unfortunately, like I have to say, it is what it is, and it's realistic from a business point of view. But at the same time, it's not nice to have to make this video to see something like this happening. It pretty much happened with the PSP as well. Sony, they didn't give up on it to the same extent, but you could tell that they were just half-assing it for the longest time. And it's pretty much the same way, myself included. You ask anyone who has a PSP, and like I said, myself included, and it's pretty much a third-party RPG haven, third-party JRPG haven, and that's it. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of any first-party Sony games that I own on the PSP, or any first-party Sony games I own on the Vita. So it just really goes to show that the support has been... They started off with great intentions, but unfortunately through decisions and what decisions eventually led to poor sales and poor marketing, and just it all just snowballed. And unfortunately, there's probably not much we can do about it, and it's probably going to be, for the rest of its lifespan, the rest of the Vita's lifespan, it's probably going to be relegated to what it is now, possibly even drying up and I don't want to say dying off, but drying up even more. And that's a sad thing to say, and I would be surprised if we ever saw another Sony handheld at all. And if they do, I think they'll go the 3DS route. I don't think they'll go for the powerhouse hardware. I think they'll go for something with a more easier casual focus, because with the Vita it feels like Sony were trying, like with all the big games and the first party games and the original big third party games, it felt like everyone was trying to give the big blockbuster AAA, big TV experience on your small Vita, which no one really wanted. The 3DS, for example, just kills it because it doesn't focus on games like that. It has a couple of them, but it also has a shitload of other games that are just easy to understand, easy to pick up and play, easy to just spend 5 minutes on, or easy to spend 10 hours on. Pokemon, I'm looking at you. But anyway, Sony just they didn't handle it right, and yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. I'm gonna leave it there though, because if I don't, I'm just gonna keep repeating myself over and over. And I just want to leave off real quick with just this little sound here. That is me and my Vita actually crying over its lack of use. Although I do have one game to buy for it later this year. It's the Trails of Cold Steel. I can't wait. But again, it's a third-party game, so is it? Yeah, it's a third-party game. I'm 99% sure it's a third-party game. I don't know who handles the Tales of Heroes, or the Legend of Heroes IP anymore. But anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you think about all the announcements today, and kind of how Sony was treating the Vita ever since we heard that original announcement, and if you think their actions speak louder than words, or what you think about the first and third party support for it. Because like I said, I don't want the Vita to fail. It's doing a meh job of failing as it is, but I don't want it. I mean, if the Vita did better, we'd get better games for it. Unfortunately, it's a catch-22. So let me know all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter. Details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.